So Jessica Mattly currently resides in San Diego, California. She owns her own coaching and consulting company. And she also has extensive human resource background. And she's been working with probably several people that I know, including one of our co-hosts today, Jen Pesicka.
Indeed.
So
that was super helpful, by the way.
So just before we get started, I wanted to kind of let you know why I want to talk about this today. Awesome. Why I think it's important, and we'll go from there. So our very first episode, or not our very first, like our second or third one, we had a gentleman on Skype, Mike Owens. And Mike's just a local gentleman who lives up here in my area of the country. And a lot of what he talked about was having, and Jen used the word a few minutes ago, was pivot. That's such an awesome word. He had to do it. During the very beginning of the pandemic, he was working for a law firm. Yeah. They didn't have space for him anymore. And he decided to go and build those really cool wooden flags that you might see as you're driving. He's made a job. He's made a career out of it. I know he's doing some, as of now, I know he's taken on some more tasks, but it was really interesting hearing about him. And I know obviously he wasn't the only one. Jen here herself had to go through it. So Jen and I, when we were talking, her and I would chat as much as we could during her time that she was on furlough, and she had mentioned she was working with you and how outstanding you were and all the services that you were providing to her. And then fast forward to almost like right now, and I was just talking before you joined us, I was talking to Jen. My wife Melanie is now thinking about re-entering her industry after being out for 15 years. So yeah. So really what I want to do with this show is use it for someone like Melanie or Mike or Jen. What are some really high level things that they should understand working with someone like yourself? And why should they work with someone like yourself? How can that benefit them within their efforts of I'm going to steal Jen's word, that pivoting to a different industry later on in your career? I find that interesting because it is a situation now where so many people are having to do it. So
sure. And it's a tool, right? So it's kind of like, do I use a tape measure every day? No, I don't. Am I happy that I have one in the chance that I need it? Yes, I do. So that's how I feel about career tools in general, career resources. It's a skill set. It's something you want to know how to do if you need to know how to do it. Because by the time you've realized you need it, it's now delayed your process because it's going to take a little while now to kind of get it started. So I see it as like a tool. So I'm happy that you're focusing about it, or you're focusing on it and you're talking about it, because people may not realize the need sometimes until they need it. And then they're on a time crunch. So it's my favorite topic to talk about outside of karaoke. So I'm down. I'm ready.
Well, I should have my wife join for the karaoke part of it. That's we'll have you back for a karaoke. Every time we cut all these show ideas, we'll do karaoke. That'd be awesome. A couple of drinks, and we'll have.
Yeah. Now wait, can you hear me okay? Because I actually have a microphone. So can you hear it okay?
Do I need to clear the bell?
No, you're good.
Perfect.
You're good.
You look great. You sound great. Cheers to you.
Yes, cheers.
I did not refresh today, so I apologize.
So that's not fair. Oh, great.
So before we get started, I'm going to do our icebreakers. And I'm going to try to throw you some softballs, and we'll do some harder ones later.
Ready.
Are you ready? La Jolla or Coronado?
La Jolla or Coronado? I'm going to say Coronado.
Okay. Why?
Mostly because La Jolla, I've worked in La Jolla before, and there's only one way in. And as a possible hypochondriac, I ask myself, how would I get out? No, I'm kidding. Coronado has a little bit more to do. You can get anywhere within about, 5 minutes. You can get downtown. You can go IB. You can do the beach. La Jolla, you're in the middle of nothing. You better like where you're at, because it's going to take a while to get anywhere else.
True.
So let me tell you my La Jolla story. And I think I told Jen this probably long ago, so I forgot about it. But way long ago, I when I lived in San Diego, I was told a story that it was intentional the way La Jolla was set up, that it was supposed to be difficult to get to. Like they made it so that the way that road goes, that it wouldn't be a popular travel way. And I don't know if that's true or not, or me just throwing sales stuff out there. I don't know if that's true, but I've never checked it. So, all right. So a couple more. So the next one, are you a sports fan?
Yes. RIP to my San Diego teams that are not that great. Yes.
So that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you, Padres what's going to happen first? Padres World Series, or I know they're not San Diego, but the Chargers Super Bowl. What will happen first?
As a San Diegan, obviously I have to say Padres because they didn't leave. So I would say that they are going to do World Series first with a player like Tatis. I have to believe we have a chance. Although we started off really strong what Joe Musgrove was able to do for us that no one had done before. And it's kind of fallen apart a little bit, but I'm going to say that I'm going to see a Padres World Series in my lifetime.
I think so too.
Yeah. I've been to Cooperstown. Do you know how sad it is to pass by the empty locker room? It's like they have a little locker that's designated for the Padres and there's nothing in it. So,
wah, wah.
Wah,
I didn't know that. So my 2 cents on that. So people who haven't been to San Diego, and I'm not doing the whole selling San Diego, but we do have 3 awesome hotels. Come on, visit.
It's a great place.
How about that? So no, the stadium, Petco.
mm-hmm.
People don't realize how cool that stadium. Now we have a lot of listeners in the Northeast, specifically in Boston, so we're a little spoiled with the history of Fenway, and people love it. They don't care how uncomfortable it is, that the seats face center field. They don't care because their grandfather and grandmother sat in those seats, so they don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those people, though, I tell them, go and see a Padre because the Red Sox were in San Diego 2 years ago, and we actually had some clients, and it was so much fun. But you go into these new stadiums, specifically a stadium like Petco, and you just realize how awesome it is to have these new and shiny stadiums.
I agree with you. And I think that San Diego, specifically Petco Park, is known for being just a great venue space, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when I love all the other sports fans that tell us, maybe we're focused on aesthetics and not skill set. And I'm like, how dare you? But they're not wrong.
They're dead to me. Whoever says that, they're dead to me. But yeah, they're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
Someday, we'll get there someday.
Well, we got a few more here. We're gonna hold them till the end. So we're gonna get started. Thank you again, Jess, for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. We're really excited to share your message to our listeners and push our conversation. So, Jen, do you want to get started? Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I know we're going to focus on career transformations and resume revamps and all the fun things. But what I would love for everybody to know is what I have the privilege to know that you and I have talked about is, unfortunately, we were both furloughed along with 90% of the world last year. And then you went off and started this amazing business. So my question that I wanted to know is this something you always wanted to do? Or was this like, oh crap, I got to make something happen. I'm great at this and I can be hugely successful at my own business?
Great question. I think it's a little bit of both. So my intention, I don't think, was to embark on my own and follow this career coaching track as far as it's gone. I think it's just who I've always been. I've just found different ways to do it. And I had done it for so long for a company, right? In the spot of human resources, you're there to help people with their career progression. I'd been helping friends and family for a long time. But when I was living in the furlough forest with you and all of our other furloughed creatures, where were the people to serve? I felt like I had to do something. I had to help somewhere. And how lucky was I that the calls started coming in to me, people that knew me, people that knew people that knew me, and said, I know that you know how to do a resume. I know that you know how to help people with their interviewing skills. I feel like I have a skill set and I don't know what to do with it now. I hear that you can help me. And so that really started it's like the path cleared for me and I took it. So I embarked down that journey. It's not what I expected. I mean, I went to school for grief counseling. So if you want to talk about people that know how to change career tracks, I can tell you all about it personally. But professionally, it was a skill set that I found to use in a different way. But I'm really excited that I had the opportunity.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you're in the midst of something like that, I don't know about you, I cried a lot in the beginning. I drank a lot in the beginning. And then it was just kind of like, okay, you got to make something happen. The bills aren't going to pay themselves. So what are you going to do about it? Right.
Absolutely. And I, like you, probably spent the first couple of weeks like, why even put mascara on? I'm just going to cry it off. Right. Yeah. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I think for professionals that are used to having a sense of, this is what I do. I wake up in the morning and I go here and I do this thing. And then having really a task and a purpose, to not have that felt very, the best way I can say it is it felt disconnected. Like connecting what you do every day to a meaningful purpose, there was a disconnection there. And I, for myself and for others, have just found a way to show them to not feel like you've been disconnected, but instead you're deployed into something different. And what could that look like? But I'm with you. You know what I wasn't doing? Working out, reading books, writing a screenplay like everyone else.
Well, everybody grieves differently, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and to that point, I'm sure you have lots of people reaching out, just sort of saying, what do I do? And do I stay in this industry? For those of us in the hospitality industry and the airline industry, all the things, we had no idea how long this was going to be. I'm sure, I think COVID was awful. I think one of the positives is that it did either allow or force people to say, okay, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to keep doing this? Is this my love? Or is it not? And is now the opportunity for me to go ahead and really follow my passion and fix my career. Did you see a lot of that?
You're so right. You know, I read about it in a book a long time ago, and sometimes things don't make sense until later. But what I read about was this concept called the Grace of Interruption. And I was like, what's that? Well, the Grace of Interruption means that you have finally had the chance, a break, really a break in the cycle, a break in your timeline, a break in your pattern, that you now have to stop and say, is this the way I want it to go? Is this what I intended? And it creates a space that wasn't there before for reflection and time. And they call it the Grace of Interruption. And I thought to myself at first, like, what a sham. What does that even mean? But now I get it. I spoke to so many professionals that said, you know, I've always enjoyed my job, but now that I've had a break, I've asked myself, is this really what I want? Or have I just been doing it for so long? Right. Is this what I intended? I actually meant to do something else and I didn't. And now is it time to return to that first passion? So it was an opportunity to stop and pause and reflect, which busy professionals do not give themselves the time to do. So Correct. It was done for us. And I think if, like you said, COVID was awful. But if there was something that came out of that for professionals in the workplace or people looking to return to the workplace, it's that they had that break to think about it and to make a decision.
Yeah. And so what do you say to people when, so I'll use myself. So I've been in the hospitality industry for 20 years, right? And it's comfortable. It's what I know. It's what I've done. So what do you say to somebody who is kind of toying with, gosh, I know I'm good at this. It's what I've done. I'm really scared to try something else, to shift my whole career. What kind of advice do you give to those questions?
Oh man. Well, it depends where we are.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I tend to, I'm a big sister. Okay. I have 2 younger siblings. I'm used to being kind of as the big sister. Sometimes you have to give some big sister advice. That doesn't always feel good, but it's what you need sometimes, right? So I kind of temper, depending on who I'm speaking to, what type of advice I give. I would say my most gentle advice would be reminding someone that if there's a thought that is persistent, that just keeps coming around, and you stop to think about it, and you take those couple of minutes to imagine yourself there, what could it be like? What might it be like? And then you discard it, and it comes again and it goes again, back and forth. It's worth your time. If it's worth your time to daydream about, it's worth your time to sit down and plan. Is it possible? And I feel like there really is a reason why you are constantly being reminded about it. It's because you know that's what you want, but you will make an excuse on why you don't deserve it, or why you're not qualified for it, or why it would be too difficult, but you're just snoozing it. It's just like a snooze button. It'll be back, just a matter of when. So I like to tell people, like, stop snoozing it. Turn it off already. At least sit down and ask yourself, is it worth going for? Is it worth putting away? As we progress in the big sisterliness, I like to remind people, if they say, I'm comfortable and I don't want to leave, I say, then don't. Then stay exactly where you are. How does that work out for you? You must love it if you choose to stay. And what I learn is it's not necessarily sometimes a loyalty to the company. It's not a loyalty to the industry. It's a loyalty to their comfort. It's difficult to be uncomfortable. And I don't know how, you feel about it, but I think that regret weighs more than fear does. It just weighs more, and it'll weigh on you more. So I think it's worth exploring. And with someone who has an extensive background, I like to remind them, you have padded your resume with a lot of great experience. If you were to use this opportunity, which hopefully will never come around again, something like a pandemic, to say, I'm going to bunny trail and follow a passion, you have a resume that will protect you as a parachute that you can come back to. You've fully expressed everything you can do. You can jump right back in. Why not take the chance to see what else is out there?
So Jess, touch a little bit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, JP.
Nope, you go.
Touch a little bit about the investment. You use that word on a couple of your platforms. What should a person interpret that as meaning? Obviously, people think financial and time, but how do you define the investment?
Like investing in yourself. I consider professional development an investment of time, energy, and money. Time, because if you think of it this way, often the biggest hurdles I see people having to overcome is they don't have time to do professional development. They don't have time to look at jobs. They don't have time to make another resume. And I understand that, but they have to understand that sometimes it's not time management, it's priority management that they need. If it was a priority, you would make the time. And you know that it's true. And I will tell people sometimes in my Instagram story, let me give you an example. This story that I've made is 2 minutes long. You watch the whole thing. This could have been 2 minutes you had using something else. You need better priorities. And so I think sometimes it comes down to priority management.
Stop watching this.
Stop watching this right now. You go apply for a job. That's right. And so I think it's priority management. That's the time. Energy is another component of that. Again, it's prioritizing your energy. And I understand that believe me, after a long day, especially for those that are currently working full-time and sometimes full-time plus, because where hospitality is, they come home, they don't want to have to look for a job, or you've been with kids all day. You don't want to sit down and have to look at something about you. But I like to remind people, in an emergency situation, the advice is always to care for you first, right? Because if you can't care for you, you can't care for anyone else. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to energy and knowing where to put that, if you're not taking that time to pause and ask yourself, if you're not investing in yourself because you don't think you're worth the time, then how could you possibly make a contribution in the workplace where you are, if you're not even prioritizing yourself? So I think it's an energy investment. But lastly, it is a financial investment. Often you have to hire a professional who knows what they're doing to help you get to your goal. And that to me is the benefit of coaching in any area. Some people want a fitness coach. Some people want a resume coach, an interview coach. It's built for speed. It's to help you accomplish goals in a more structured, efficient way, because you're with someone that's going to hold you accountable and give you a framework that works for other people. So that to me is what investment needs. It's not just your time, but it's your energy, and sometimes it's your money.
Yeah, I think when you talk accountability, one of the things that I love that you do so much on your Instagram is just take action. Stop looking at LinkedIn, stop looking at all the jobs, hit apply. You keep looking, you want to do it, just do it. And I think that's so great, right? Like, why, like you say, it's just scroll, just hit the apply button and go for it.
that is such a great point, Jennifer. I can think of so many examples of clients that I've had that have said things to me like, I've been looking for a job for 2 months. I don't even know that this coaching is going to work, but I thought I would try anything. I'm desperate. And I said, oh my gosh, 2 months. How many jobs have you applied for? And they're like, did I say apply? I said, I've been looking. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, here's the thing. You apply for 0 jobs, you're going to get 0 jobs. So
Right.
sometimes even in coaching, it's holding someone accountable and saying, what's our plan? How many jobs are you going to apply for? When? Did you put in your application yet? And it's those different actions that they take that will lead to the different result. So I think the accountability piece is huge, especially in coaching. It's like fitness. Most people aren't losing or accomplishing their fitness goals because of their personal trainer. The personal trainer is not doing the push-ups for you. They're just making sure you show up and you do the push-ups. And so that's really what it looks like in many different areas, and especially professional development and professional development coaching.
What typically is that first step? We talked a little bit about making the decision to do it, right? But once you do make the decision, should that person take, like, what is there a test they should take to determine what their passion is? How do they evaluate their beliefs? Like, what do you recommend someone do once they make that decision? Hey, maybe it's time to do something different.
Sure. So I typically work with 3 types of clients. One is a career explorer. They really are just in gypsy land. They're like, I can do anything. I just don't know what that is. Okay. That's where we're going to meet them there. And the next type of client typically knows where they're trying to go. So they have a career in mind, and it's really the next steps of getting there. How do I do that? And that branches off. They're either one form of client is trying to stay within the same industry, but they're looking to promote. So how do I position myself as an ideal candidate for a promotion? That second set is how do I position myself as an ideal candidate for career change? So those are really kind of my 3 types. I would say mostly what you're talking about, the assessment piece, is valid for all 3, but is most likely used in a career explorer situation. So someone is sitting to evaluate and ask themselves, what am I supposed to be doing here? Because I'm feeling a little bit lost. And I don't have a crystal ball. I did not go to school to be a fortune teller. Like, I don't know what your career is supposed to be.
Is that a school? Because I would go to that.
You know what? Maybe. But I can't give out bad news. I feel bad. So maybe I wouldn't be a fortune teller.
True.
But I feel like when it comes to careers, they have to do some internal reflection. So there's really a couple ways to do that. I love assessments. They have my heart. So I typically would recommend an assessment like a strengths finder. Before you start going off and figuring out what to do, why don't you figure out what tools you're going to be working with to do it? So why don't you determine what's that through line? What are you really good at? What are those characteristics and traits that make you so uniquely you? And then let's talk about which roles might allow you to do those things. So for example, I am not going to be an astronaut. Is it because I'm not smart enough? Well, maybe, but it's also because I don't like to go over like 100 miles an hour. Why in the world would I want to shoot in outer space? Like, no thanks. And I need indoor plumbing. Like, this is a whole thing. So I feel as though assessing and really distilling a skill set and interest level is important. And that's where you start. Assessments that look at skill sets like Strength Finder are great. Personality profiles like Myers-Briggs is also great. Now you have to know Myers-Briggs and I, we have a rocky relationship because people sometimes wear that personality profile like a badge. It's just to inform you. It's not to tell you what you are. It's to inform you what might be possible with your characteristics. So I love that Myers-Briggs as a conversation starter, but there are some others. As a matter of fact, the government, I believe it's the Department of Labor, has established an incredible career resource called ONET. onet.org. I will
like the letter O, not own, like O-N-E-T.
O must stand for occupation is my best guess. net.org. And it was built by the Department of Labor to help people assess skill set and also give them statistics for their local area in whether those occupations are trending upwards, downwards, what are some common education and skill sets that they're looking for. And it's free 99. It's a great place to start. As a matter of fact, I often direct people there through my Instagram. So there really are a lot of different assessments, whether they're formalized or free or paid for, that you can take And they're intended to be conversation starters, to ask yourself questions you don't typically ask yourself. And that really is where I would have someone start a self-assessment. You got to look in.
So once you get past that portion and you're ready to rebuild your resume, as Brian was alluding to, or build it, right? There are people coming out of college that don't have as many opportunities at the moment. When you and I chatted, I was looking for something hopefully temporary and sent you my resume, and you were like, when's the last time you updated this? Because A, it's too long, and B, it pretty much says the same thing for 3 different hotels. So the thing that I love that you do about resumes is you're like, you know what, the job that you're applying for, if you know what that is, they're telling you exactly what they're looking for. You can answer their questions in your resume. Like, hey, we're looking for somebody who can do 100 push-ups. Well, you know what? I can do 102 push-ups. Sure. And I thought that was such great advice, but it's looking back, it seems so simple. You're right. Job descriptions typically say we're looking for somebody who can do this and this and this. And then you detail your resume to that, right?
Exactly. And you know who that works the best for? My salespeople or hospitality humans or people that have worked in customer service, because they understand what it means to meet their clients' needs. And I will often tell somebody, you're not seeing this the way I'm seeing this. I look at that job description like the needs of your client. Your client is saying, I need these things. If you looked at it like a client asking you for help, you would talk to them differently, because you would say, let me help you meet your needs, instead of, taking an interview like an interrogation and being super nervous about it. You would say, how can I meet the needs of this company? What skills do I have that meet the needs that they are looking for? And that's how I view a resume. So I see it as an opportunity to highlight the skill sets and the relevant experience that they need to accomplish their mission. And often when I'm talking to professionals, and I'm sure we'll talk about this too, it's really their professional branding that they lack. They don't know how to see themselves like that. They don't understand how to dissect a job description, look at it and break it down to its most basic components, and then connect it to skills and experience. That's what it boils down to. That sounds, believe me, I know it's much easier said than done, but sometimes in the process of talking through it or learning what that framework is all about, they tend to see it and hopefully see themselves in a different way.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, because I think that people in general have a hard time bragging. Not me. Jen knows I'm awesome at.
No, Brian's king.
I'm not shy. but people do have a hard time sometimes talking about themselves in a positive light. And I took a training, it was a LinkedIn training in February, and that was one of the things that the trainer had talked about was, hey, look at your successes and brag about them. This is where your job is to brag about, not your job, this is your space to brag about your successes. Do you find it hard that people, is that a myth, or do people have a hard time saying, hey, here's what I did, here's what I succeeded at?
They have a very difficult time. And I wondered why, because I've been very fortunate. The majority of people that I've worked with, I've worked with a little bit of everything now, which has been really fun. What they have in common is that they typically are top talent potential candidates. The skill set that they bring is so unique and magic, but they don't see it that way. Or their skill set and their experience plus their passion really makes them ideal to fulfill the function that this company needs filled. My best guess is that people don't see themselves as an individual contributor. They see themselves as part of a team, or this is what my company does, but they don't see how they participated in that success. How did they make sure that that mission was accomplished? And I find it to be so sweet that they don't have that sense of self, right? Like it's me show. But it also makes me so sad, because I ask myself, how else are they holding themselves back if they don't even see what they bring to the table? I have a great analogy if you'd like to hear it, but it's probably 60 seconds long.
We have plenty of time.
Edit me right out if you want. It reminds me of Dumbo and the Magic Feather. Okay. Which, by the way, saddest movie Disney ever made. Do I agree with it? Never, ever. But it has a great storyline in it. That Dumbo, this little freak of nature elephant with big old ears. Someone figures out this elephant can fly, but Dumbo's nervous. So they convince him that if he's holding a magic feather, he can fly. And so he does. Anytime he's holding it, off he goes. And then one day he's tumbling to his doom, which great Disney storyline. And right, like Dumbo's gonna die. And the little con artist mouse that convinced him that this feather was magic, Dumbo loses it. And Dumbo's like, R.I.P., here we go. And the mouse is like, I lied. It wasn't the feather. It was you. You're actually the magic. And Dumbo realizes that he never needed the feather. It was just a comfort. And he flies. Well, the best part of the story is he flies out of the burning tent to leave everyone else to die. Great. So anyway, point is,
skip right past the rest of that.
Skip right past that. Keep going. So anyhow,
making notes. Need to watch that movie.
Right. Disney, please hire me. I'm a great marketer. But it turns out that most people kind of see their company like the feather, if that makes sense, or their title as the feather, or their work experience as the feather. Like they could never do what they've done at this company somewhere else. And I'm like, how? That doesn't even make sense when you say it out loud. So it's helping people separate their sense of company and what their company identity is and who they are as an individual contributor. That has been my favorite part. And to answer your question, what I see the most is people are so tightly wound with the identity of who their company has told them they are or who they believe they are there, that they cannot see themselves somewhere else. Yeah. And that's been the fun part.
And as I usually do, I'm going to bring us down a rabbit hole. I'm really good at that. So let's just jump right in. So, one of the things I talk about my wife a lot, because she works for herself. I think a little bit about what she does. Is about the value of your time and putting that dollar amount next to your time. Even Jen and I probably talked about it before, but I'm a big believer in knowing what your value is and your dollar amount value. You talk about investment, but your time, like you said, is by far one of your biggest investments. And that would be my recommendation to people is know what your time is worth and set yourself there more than anything else. And I don't know if there's no easy way to measure that. But to me, that would be my advice to anybody. Know exactly what your value is per your time investment.
Absolutely. And I would add to that and say, know what people get know what a company or another person, what value will they receive when you give them your time? What will they get out of that? I think to me, more than dollar amount, it's how will you do things differently than the person next to you? What value will you bring that is so magically you that they're not going to get somewhere else? That makes you one of a kind, and one of a kind is priceless. So I always like to help people figure out, what is that? What makes me so uniquely me that I can bring to the table that no one else is going to do the way I do it because it's me. I think that's important. It's hard to see yourself that way, but I think sometimes asking difficult questions and going through the process helps them identify what that could mean and what that can look like.
Yeah, I don't know if you hear this too, but I think it's different or easier maybe to put it on paper, right? Like when you're writing a resume, you put all the things down, but then your interviewee says, hey, I see this. And then you have to talk about it. It's like you just kind of clam up. It's like, yeah, I said that, but it's okay. Like, let's talk about what you want, right?
Absolutely. Are you talking about in an interview specifically?
Yeah. I think once your resume has been recognized and they're like, hey, great, they touch all these points we need. This is exactly who we want. And then you get in front of whoever, the hiring manager or the CEO, whoever it might be. They sit down, they look at resumes, put it down. Okay, great. I see you do this. Let's talk about that. How did you do that? And then it's like, well, it was a team effort. My boss, it's just kind of like you just revert back to introvert.
Absolutely. And, it's funny that you say that. Someone asked me once, what is the most valuable thing for someone to know? How to make a resume or how to do an interview? And I said, interview every time. Because someone can help you with an interview, with a resume. They can write it for you. They cannot step into that room and answer those questions for you. So to me, they come together. It's a pairing. You have to know how to highlight your skill set, of course, on a resume, because that resume is going to get you the interview, but that interview is going to get you the job. So how do you speak to yourself in a way that highlights and markets many of the features that you put on that resume? And often I find that people use language that doesn't help them. They will, what I call, round down their skill set, or they round down their experience. They use words like just, I just, or they use words like we. And I'm like, are you French? What is this? We stuff. No. They're not interviewing your team. They're interviewing you. How did you make the team successful towards their mission? So I think it's important to think about the language that you use. Of course, the words and tone that you use are important as well, but knowing what story you're aligning to before you get into that room. And I think a lot of that process, when, even if I do a resume for someone or I don't, I just prep them for an interview, is we're thinking about it through that lens. Is how are you going to market yourself in a way that is most attractive to the person you're speaking to? You're seeing them as a client, right? So how are you going to market to that client and make it about them and not just about you?
I think that's a good point. And I think that can be taken for either, we talked a lot about transitioning careers, but you mentioned earlier too, internal promotions, right? Like those are a thing. When you go on to want to take your next step or your next promotion, what does that look like? How do you speak to that person knowing that they know your current boss? And how do you then set yourself apart from your current team, knowing you might still be with that team, but a step above or a step over? I mean, it's tricky.
Absolutely. But an internal promotion, the challenge, in my opinion, with an internal promotion is that you have been working with these people. And so they have an idea of who you are, which is probably how you ended up in that promotion conversation, because you've set a reputation for yourself. The challenge is, how do you go in there with a professional brand and maybe tell them what they don't know? They might have an idea about who you are, but how do you speak about yourself in this next position? How do you fill in the blanks of what they don't know? Everything that they do know got you to where you're at, but what they don't know is going to get you into the next spot. And I love that. I love the idea of people taking the time to prepare for an internal interview as much as they do an external interview, but they don't. They let comfort set in. And then if they don't perform well in the interview and they don't get the role, then, well, things go sideways really fast, I feel like, in their career. But it's important to think about as a career development opportunity, not just for people that are looking to leave their industry or leave their employer, but are looking to grow in their employer and establish themselves and be seen as an ideal internal leader, really is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
No, you go. I'm monopolizing.
No, it's all great questions. No, it's fantastic questions. Jen and I chat a lot, obviously. We spend quality time on it. But it's we know what it is, because her and I think, are similar in our career in terms of how long we've been doing this. So it's interesting because we share ideas with each other. It's not negative stuff. It's a lot. Sometimes it's I ask her advice on stuff, she doesn't ever ask mine. She's smart. So but
that's not true. You give good
advice. No. It's really interesting hearing Jen's perspective, because with what I feel like what we do is very unique. Try to explain to someone what we do for a living. Good luck.
Right.
So if you go to another industry they're not familiar after the first half an hour of trying to explain to them, but going back to an internal promotion, our industry, and I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to turn this into hotels. I really don't. But you think about our industry with our functionality, it's shrunk in terms of amount of opportunities. Because now you look at 1,000 hotels. Of the 1,000, you may have a small percentage of them that have sales managers actually in the building. So because of that, your opportunities for growth now isn't what it was 10 and 15 years ago. So the competition is much different in terms of that career path. So
Absolutely.
when you have that situation in other industries, like what's your advice to people when maybe their chance for advantages within their own industry is not as easy as maybe in something else?
It really is dependent on the person. But if I had to be general, I would say that yes, of course, I know that the opportunities are smaller now, right? There's less openings, more candidates. But even pre-pandemic, I feel like people didn't necessarily take the time to prepare for what they wanted. This has really forced individuals that have said, I haven't done a resume in I don't know how many years. Every job I've received has been because I was told that this was my new job, or it was a phone call and they said, hey, do you want this job? I have to do a resume. I have to prepare for an interview. And so I think it's really forced people to have to see themselves in a different way. And it's forced their hand on a skill set they haven't been well versed in. I will say that if somebody was looking for a promotion and there is no opportunity in their company, then they have to ask themselves some difficult questions. The questions I might ask somebody would be, what are you looking to give with this promotion? Why do you want the promotion? Be honest with me. Is it financial? Is there something that you're looking to accomplish with this promotion that you can't do in your current role? Those answers are going to help determine what do they do next. You know what this philosopher said many years ago, very, very wise man. He said, you have to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. And I think when it comes to a career, I think when it comes to a career journey, it's sometimes you have to know when is it time. If you're looking for financial advancement, if you're looking, I think we'll stick with financial. If it's a financial advancement and you work in an industry that is not going to be able to give you the financial freedom you're looking for, perhaps it's time to look at another industry. And I know that's hard. I know that's difficult. But if that is your goal, then you're sacrificing one or the other. Which one do you want it to be? If it is contribution, so they're looking to perhaps give contribution to a different population, a different industry. They want to use their skills in a different way. They have a passion that they want to pursue. Then it comes back to that question again. Can you do that where you are? If you can do it with you are, great. Let's talk about what that plan looks like. If you can't, then you're going to have to make a difficult choice. And when I say difficult, not difficult as in which one you should do, difficult as in do it. And I think that's where a lot of people have had to make, some time to ask those questions that they didn't before. Well, how am I looking to contribute? Can I do that where I'm at? What am I looking to gain? Can I have that where I am? If not, am I willing to take the steps necessary to get it?
Yeah, I like that. And going back to the whole branding issue, because you've mentioned that a couple of times, self-branding. And, I think for either internal, I guess, you might have a brand. People might think they know your brand because you've been with a company. But like in Brian's and Melanie's situation, when you are potentially looking to do a complete shift or maybe go back to doing something you did years and years ago, you have your brand, your current brand. How does that transpose to what you might be looking to do moving forward?
Absolutely. I hate to be that HR person, but it does depend. I hate that. I hate when I say it depends, but it's so true. Let me give you a generic, tell you where, when I say it depends, let me tell you where I break it down. When people are looking to make a career change, there's typically a purpose as to why. And when they're figuring out how to speak to their skill set, what they're offering is the what. This is what I can do for you. This is how I can do it for you. They get so invested in the what and the how. That's called a resume. They forget to mention the why. Why are they making that switch? I call that a professional brand story. You're connecting the dots for someone like an interviewer or a client or whatever that looks like. You're connecting the dots between the how, the what, and the why. You're giving them the full story. Yes, this was my profession. And these are the incredible things I was able to do with it. This is the contribution and the impact I was able to make. But this is why I'm interested in making the change. And it's typically in the why that you make a personal connection and an emotional connection really to your interviewer. And that why is often what will differentiate you from other people, because the skill set that you have, yes, I'm sure you're really good at your job. I bet you have all kinds of awards, but that skill set can be replicated. Typically your why cannot. And I would think about that. Where does your why fit into all of this? And as people are making those type of career changes, I would challenge them to weave that into their story as they're meeting and networking and trying to make connections with people in different fields. Why are they looking to make that change? And how is that going to be helpful to them? What's the relevance?
And so along with that, again, going out of the industry, let's say out of your current industry, when your resume doesn't reflect that, how do you get that person's attention, the hiring manager's attention, when they're, it's all coming through on a computer or questionnaire or whatever, and they're like, well, person A has everything we're looking for, person B a little bit, person C, yeah, they did this 10, 15 years ago, but man, things have changed. Like, we're going to go ahead and pass. How do you get recognized on paper first?
Sure. Thinking about the most through line general answer on that.
Fair enough.
I would say for clients that I've had that have made total career shifts, they were doing something in an industry. I mean, one client I can think of, they were at the top of their company. There was nowhere else for them to go. Like, they had accomplished it. Right. And then the company, because of the pandemic, really cut off the top because that was going to be the most costly to them to keep on furlough. Makes sense. They made a business decision. Where do you go when you were at the top of something? Now the pool that you're in of people used to be tiny. Now you're with other people that are at the top of their game. How do you compete with them? You haven't written an interview, or you haven't gone to an interview, written a resume in forever. There are some techniques you can use in general, if I'm being very general. By the way, this person went on to switch industries into a different position and signed a 6-figure contract for it. So I know that it's possible. I've seen it many times. And they do it in a couple different ways. One, typically, I might recommend a functional resume. Functional resume, folks, will highlight the skills that you have and not necessarily the job titles you did it with, but more of the magical things you know how to do. Sometimes a functional resume is helpful. Is that helpful when you put it into an application tracking system? No, it is not. That's why networking is the other side of that coin. It's not just being able to market yourself, it's being able to find the people to market to. So I offer a lot of LinkedIn strategy in conversations with clients. And we talk about how do you find the conversations that are happening with the people you want to speak to. Go speak to them there. Sometimes, because of the nature of my work, a lot of times it's LinkedIn. Professionals are looking for corporations. And so they will go to LinkedIn pages. I'll show them strategy of how to look for different people, how to spark a conversation with them. What you really want to do is find an opportunity to provide that functional resume to somebody. If you can hand it over to a human and not have to send it through an application tracking system, even better. If not, and let's say you have to do a traditional resume, you have no other option, then really focusing in and leaning into the most relevant skills and experience that tie the job that you want to have to the jobs you've already had. What are the commonalities? There's got to be some. What are they? What do they look like? So for example, if I wanted to work, I'm so good at thinking of random examples. If I wanted to be an airline attendant, a flight attendant, this might be a little bit easier because of my hospitality background, but let's just use an example. Hospitality, and I also wouldn't. I'm a horrible flyer. So, but if I really wanted to be an airline attendant, and I have no experience in airlines ever, what I'm going to ask myself is, what is the nature of that job? What is the function of the job? Not just the tasks. Have I ever showed somebody how to blow up an inflatable slide? No, I have not. But do I know how to resolve a conflict in a space that needs to be done quickly, confidentially, in a way that builds rapport and doesn't destroy the brand? Yes, I have. Let me talk about how I know how to do that. I always tell people, if you can have one job in customer service, please take it. Having a customer service job teaches you so much. And in many cases, people don't know how to take their experience that they've had before and connect to the job that they want. That's the bridge that they cannot see. And that's really the work, is what is that through line? How does that job description give you any clues that there's work there to be done that you have done, but you've just done it in a different way that looks a little bit different? Can I give you a quick example of a client I'll keep complete anonymity. I have a client
is Jennifer, last name Pesicka.
By the way, I'm not looking to leave my job. Let me just throw this out there for anybody who might be listening.
That's so funny.
General question.
No.
I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I had a client that worked for a major, I think they were major organization. And their job in that organization was more financial based. Very for-profit. Well, due to the pandemic and the slowing of travel and tourism and all this stuff, their job was definitely in jeopardy. They decided to get ahead of it. They wanted to work for a nonprofit doing more of the human side of it, right? So the donor relations and things like that. So how do you take someone that has been in like a very sterile financial situation, and what does that even look like for nonprofit relationship building? And we started to dissect what that nonprofit job needed. They did need someone that understood budget. They needed someone that understood things like forecast. They didn't use those words, but that's what it was. They needed somebody who could connect to other humans, and especially in the area of public speaking. And that's where they said, hands up, I'm not a public speaker. I said, okay, let's think about this. So in your role, have you ever needed to give a presentation? Yes, we go through all those examples. I say, your job was so specific. Did you ever have to teach it to other people or talk about your job to other people? Yes, I learned. They had been training others. Okay, we're getting closer. I said, did you ever attend a conference or anything about your industry? They did attend a conference. Did you ever, I don't know, have the chance to speak at one or even like give a small, any type of networking, anything? And then they tell me, as a matter of fact, when they were trying to replicate their framework throughout the country, this person did speak at a conference. Oh, in your state? They said, no, Peru.
Okay.
I said, what? Wait. I just want to repeat what you said to me. You just told me you weren't you were not a public speaker. Then I learned you are a liar, liar, pants on fire, because you actually are an international public speaker because you spoke at a conference. And she says, oh, when you say it like that. No, when you see it like that.
Right.
So the challenge is that people don't see how their experience, they don't understand how their experience is so unique. They're so used to seeing it through one lens. The challenge of working with an outside provider or even asking yourself difficult questions is to now see yourself as an observer and not as the person living it. You'll see two different stories between the one that's looking at you and the one that's in it. So that's really, that's an example of how someone would switch an industry that they would never think of because they didn't really see the function behind what they were doing and how it was relevant in other places.
That's really cool.
It's funny you bring up LinkedIn, and LinkedIn started as a job board. That's what it was, and then it sort of evolved. I remember talking to somebody from LinkedIn. When they were doing business development training for using as a sales tool. Yeah. So it went from job board to sales tool. I feel like it's going back to a job board again, in a lot of ways. So it's interesting on the evolution of LinkedIn. How do you think how does LinkedIn help or hurt candidates? I mean, is it ultimately a great tool? I mean, does it have downsides to it? I mean, are you indifferent towards it at this point?
Ooh, I love the twist question. How does it hurt somebody? Because it does. It helps and hurts. Yeah. Let me tell you what can hurt somebody. Let me just be positive here and start with the negative. So if you have a LinkedIn profile, someone is going to find it. It's most likely going to be the person that you have submitted an application to. And what will hurt someone is when they make a LinkedIn because they quote unquote have to, right? Because that's what people do, but they don't maintain it. And if you don't maintain it, it actually works against you because now you don't look up to date. It's not relevant. It's not exciting, especially in a market where you have people actively investing their time into making sure that LinkedIn profile looks good, sounds good, is portraying the person that they want to be portrayed. Can it hurt you? Yes, it can. When you open one and then walk away from it and try to believe no one will see it, like, no, of course not. Yes, HR people are nosy. They're going to read it, especially if you've applied for a job at their company. That's how it can hurt you. Now, why can it help you? Because for the same reason, if you've built one, people will look at it. What are you trying to portray? What is the professional brand you are trying to relay to somebody that you want them to see? And going through that LinkedIn page and ensuring that it's updated, being active on your LinkedIn page was a whole different story. To make it very quick, there's two kinds of people on LinkedIn. The majority of them are observers. They're in the audience. They're looking to see what other people are doing. They're resharing content. They're reading content. The smallest percentage are the creators, are the people on the stage. They're the ones that are creating the content that you are reposting and that you are talking about and you are liking and you are sharing. So I tell people, if you want to set yourself apart, get out of the audience, go get yourself a seat on the stage, be a creator of LinkedIn. Make sure that your information isn't just relevant, but it's also something that other people would share. And sometimes that information is about you in a way that you have crafted a commercial about you that other people are sharing. Right. And so it doesn't have to be, hi, my name is Jess Mattly. I'm looking to work here. These are my skill sets. You can say that in a different way. You don't have to be like that. So I think it will help someone if they're using it correctly. It will hurt someone if they posted it and they don't use it, because you don't look like an experienced professional, or you don't look like the professional that you want other people to see as part of your professional brand story.
I mean, I could ask 1,000 more questions, but I want to be respectful of your time. I'm sure Brian has more questions. Of course, please let us know how people can get in touch with you, because I'm a huge fan. I think you're amazing. I know I've worked with you. A lot of my colleagues and friends have worked with you, and it's not like you just assist people in San Diego. You can help anybody, right?
Majority of my clients are on the East Coast.
Oh,
so I have a lot of very early mornings. Yeah. Not what I expected.
Including a new one. Not me. Not me.
Right. It's but that's kind of the nice thing about social media is I've been able to work with people across the country in different time zones, in different situations. So how can people reach me? I would say the easiest way to reach me would be, Instagram. And I hate to say that because you think I'm polished up. Surprise, surprise. When you get to LinkedIn, you'll see I'm actually kind of an extrovert. But if you want to join the show and follow along, it's at Jess Mattly. However, and I also encourage people, you can find information as well on my website, which is jessmattly.com.